Our speaker this morning is Don Hill, and I admit that I do not know a lot about Don except that he's young and he's handsome and he's talented. And I wanted, and married, I wanted. No, I'm not stopping there, because the first thing I want is an explanation about that bald head.
Good morning, everyone. And I guess because I had such a distractible haircut, I guess a little explanation is in order. Unfortunately, no matter even if you own your own business, sometimes you still have to kind of adhere to the world around you. And I lost a client because of my hair. And but it's just hair, you know? That's just a way of things, and it was fun, but it's gone. And it also kind of works out for the theme, since I'm talking about the military. What better hairstyle to have when you're talking about military than baby butt bald? Well, I would like to start with a joke. I think that's proper format. I don't know. But one of the jokes we shared while we were in the military is an acronym. We had an acronym for almost all the military services. And U.S. Army stood for Uncle Sam ain't released me yet. And backwards was, yes, my retarded ass signed up. But we also had an acronym for the Marines. For all you jarheads out there, Marines stood for my ass rides in Navy equipment. Well, if you heard my last talk, I spent a lot of time with music, and I lost me. Oh, there I am. So I would like to start this one as well with another punk song by a band called Rise Against, and this is The Long Forgotten Sons. If I can get the mic to cooperate with me. If you can turn me up, and I'll stay away from it. All right. Far from home on a road unknown, when the vultures circle on winds that blow, from northern skies that haunt these waking moments, on shadows cast by the mountain range, on callous souls we find our way. Through desperate eyes we long for the horizon, while this sun is rising. We are the long-forgotten sons and daughters that don't belong to anyone. We are alone under this sun. We work to fix what you've undone. When cries for help go unanswered, and signal fires just burn and burn, we wonder if we're waiting here for nothing. Our lips are sewn, our ears are filled with the constant drone of the unfulfilled. But we'll never fall if we stand for something, and we stand for something. We are the long-forgotten sons and daughters that don't belong to anyone. We are alone under this sun. We work to fix what you've undone. Don't fall. I see the lights in the distance. They're not far away. Stand up, because the sky is turning gray. There's hope in these footsteps of persistence, so don't go astray. These lights get closer every day. We are the long-forgotten sons and daughters that don't belong to anyone. We are alone under the sun. We work to fix what you've undone, what you've undone. What happens now, we don't know. Just hold on tight. Here we go. There's no one reason anyone joins the military. From just graduating high school and not quite sure what to do with oneself, love of country, trying to pay for college, graduated college, or just want a better opportunity for yourself, a choice to go to the Army or go to jail, the thoughts of having amazingly cool technology at your disposal, participating in something greater than yourself. The list goes on and on. Soldiers and pro athletes have a lot in common in that regard. They were recruited young, they retire early, and I'm going to switch mics. I felt like I was talking down entirely too much. There we go. Much better. I can see everybody now. But But soldiers and pro athletes have a lot in common. They are recruited young, they retire early, and everyone loves the position they hold. It's easy to play armchair quarterback and judge from the sidelines, but unless you are there and in the middle, you just don't get it. I served for 3 years from 1997 to 2000 and got out only 11 months before 9/11 happened. And I'll tell you, that was a terrifying day. Because I was done. I had finished my contract. I was still technically obligated to when you join, no matter what you sign up for, the military owns you for 8 years. I served 3, and then I had 5 inactive reserve time. But the position I chose was an Army mechanic. I just wanted to do something with my hand. I was bored. So I didn't get called back, but that was a scary, scary day. Because have you ever been in that position where you've done something, you're finished with it, you've put it away, and now it's back, or potentially back. And but thankfully I didn't have to go. A lot of the people I did know did have to go back, or we're almost out. We're talking about like months or 2 away, and they had to stay. While I didn't have to go to Iraq or Afghanistan, I did spend a 9-month tour in Bosnia during the Milosevic regime. My first day on ground, I saw a horse-drawn, bombed-out car that had had the top cut off. The man standing on the front seat holding the reins. I was definitely not in Kansas anymore. Here was a land torn by war, and on our base, we had all the comforts American capitalism can afford. A PX that sold DVD players, CDs, televisions, camcorders, you name it. We even had a Burger King and a coffee shop. It was an odd juxtaposition. Here we were supposedly defending and protecting these people, driving through their towns in up-armored Humvees equipped with 50 cals, and yet we still had to be good consumers. On the day I did perimeter guard duty, it was commonplace to see small children standing along the concertina wire asking for Pepsis and MREs, which I may add is another oddity we had in ridiculous quantity. Sometimes when we were leaving the chow hall, we would leave our gas masks in the room so we could load it up with Mountain Dews and Pepsis and Dr. Peppers and potato chips to take them back to our rooms. And we were never out. There was always plenty of Pepsis. And kids around the area, they knew. One day, while I was on guard duty, there was a group of kids. The smallest one was probably about 6 or 7. And they were asking for the Pepsis. And we got pretty good at kind of lobbing them over. Well, I was a little short-sighted in my lob, and it landed between the strands of the concertina wire. Well, they sent the youngest in amongst them. I didn't see him, and I went to lob another one and got him in the head. So they went from being happy to get Pepsis to cussing me out quite a bit. I wasn't aiming, it was just bad timing. While I was over there, I was given a 3-day recreational pass to a city on the Adriatic Sea called Makarska. And for the first time in my life, I experienced people hating me just for my nationality. But they loved our money. None of the locals spoke to us unless we had our wallets out. It wasn't the fact that we couldn't speak their language fluently. It was exclusively because we were American. It wasn't all bad. One of the bars was an actual cave on the Adriatic, which was amazingly fun. And I also got to experience shark pizza with goat cheese. Highly recommended. Shark kind of tastes like chicken. I know that's the catch-all, but it really was odd. It was like the shark tasted like chicken. But close to the end of my tour, I had a major crisis at home, and my command would not let me go home, telling me that domestic abuse did not qualify as a family emergency. As a small consolation prize, they would have sent me home if my mother had died. Apparently, Uncle Sam needed me more than my family did. My platoon was amazingly supportive throughout the rest of my tour. There is no way I could have done it without them. They didn't handle me with kid gloves. nor did they make it any bigger of a deal than it needed to be. They helped me just make it through the day in a position where I should have been sent home. I needed to be home, but I don't know if it was logistics or whatever it was, they decided that it was not an emergency enough. But it was indeed an emergency. Never since my military career have I experienced that level of camaraderie. These were people who would die for me or killed for me considering these circumstances, and I for them. No questions asked. During my first live fire exercise in basic, I was paired with a fellow private named Applegate that most people unaffectionately called him Lurch, as in the butler from Addams Family. And he was a quiet guy, but it was apparent that he really did suffer from some type of learning disability. He was a little slower, but he was not the terrible moron that everybody was making him out to be. However, being 18 years old, and in that high school-esque kind of preconceptions, you hear all the rumors, that first live fire exercise, I was paired with him. Mind you, live fire. This is the first time we actually have real bullets, and we are doing a buddy set, buddy move. We were set about 30 yards apart, and we had little pylons that we had to go and mark up and shoot across each other. As if anybody has seen Spaceballs, across your nose, not up it. But as you can see, he did just fine. I'm here today. But here was the guy that everybody was calling, the goofball, the guy who couldn't do anything right. What is he doing in here? But I was able to trust him with my life. And so after that, I made sure that no one made fun of him, because he had every right to be there, because we were, and we all had our problems. But the military took everybody, and once you put that uniform on, everything you were outside of that uniform was gone. It didn't matter anymore. You were there together. And you were assigned many things at the onset of basic. It feels very much like being herded like as a piece of cattle, like the first time you step off that bus. But none of those things are more important than the assignment of your battle buddy. And your battle buddy is nothing special as to how you receive it. It's just the person before or after your name alphabetically. It was the person that you shared a bunk with, above or below you. You had, the wall walkers you shared. But the way that worked is you didn't get punished without them. You didn't get praised without them. There was about 3/4 of the way through when we kind of were a little big for our britches. The drill sergeants came in, they were going to punish us, and we just laughed it off. We're like, oh no, we have to do push-ups again. Well, he asked us to fill up both of our canteens. And we're like, oh, wow. They're making sure that we're hydrated before we do this. This might be a little bigger of a deal. Well, he made us drink both of our canteens and asked us to fill them up again and drink those. And fill them up again and drink those. I don't know if you can see where this is going. We had drank entirely too much water. I have never seen people throwing up just water. It's like we had taken as much water as our bodies could handle. We were pouring it out the windows. The drill sergeant just drug in a trash can just for us to dump it in there. And then he made us fill them up again once he realized we had had enough. But this time, it was to do arm exercises. And it was just to wait for one of us to break ranks. And it was my battle buddy that broke ranks first. I mean, all of us had to go to the bathroom, obviously, quite bad that time. And he made it about 2 steps and about half the sentence before he went right there. And both of us had to do push-ups in his own urine. But we had to do it together. Everything. And that memory, that time has stuck with me. You know, I will never forget. It took me a long time to like water again. You know, like I didn't care if I was hydrated or not. I was not drinking water anymore. But everything that you did, good, bad, disgusting, indifferent, you all did it together. And it's an amazing feeling to be in a spot in your life where somebody really has your back, whether they like you or not. They don't have to. But you have that uniform on, and together you stand for something. And thousands of soldiers have given their lives to protect their battle buddies. And let me be clear here. Soldiers die for each other. To quote the father of Corporal Andrew Wolfhart, a gay soldier that was killed in Afghanistan, soldiers don't die for our freedom of speech. They don't die for patriotism. They don't die for noble causes. They don't die for our political agendas. Soldiers die for each other. If the man or woman to your right or left is doing their job, that's all that matters. Gender, race, creed, sexuality just aren't on their radar. Can they shoot straight? Can they take care of each other? Do they have your back? That's all a soldier cares about. Yet back home, stateside, that mentality does not cross over. When we're finished with our tour and service, we have to go back to a world that doesn't reflect that same unity we experience, nor does it reflect the freedoms we as Americans speak so highly of defending. Those worn-out phrases such as freedom isn't free and stuff like that. We come home only to start back at zero. We have to stand in line just like everyone else to move ahead. The impression I got was that the time I spent on the military meant nothing. And in my eyes, service time should at least equal a gen ed degree. Unfortunately, the reality of what we receive for our time served is, on any given night, more than 300,000 vets are living on the streets, are in shelters in the U.S. Approximately 33% of homeless males in the U.S. are veterans. Veterans are twice as likely as other Americans to become chronically homeless. Veterans represent 11% of the adult civilian population, but 26% of the homeless population. The number of homeless Vietnam-era vets, male and female, is greater than the number of soldiers who died during the war. And former service members represent 20% of suicides in the United States, yet only 1% of Americans have served in the military. We come home to appalling groups such as the Westboro Baptist Church, who get to spew their hatred and bigotry at military funerals. Groups such as Atheists and Foxholes, a free-thinking military group, get called names, receive threats against their children, or flat out ignored during parades. Thankfully, times have changed and we no longer have a draft. And the military is now on a volunteer basis, but we should all be careful of what that entails. True, I did volunteer for the Army, but I did not necessarily volunteer to be sent over to Bosnia or to be part of Team America World Police. Even after basic, the concept of war was still abstract and will be forever for those of us who have not had that become a reality. The issuance of my dog tags and the awareness of what they stood for is the closest I have come to that realization of what I potentially signed up for, and that was to die. They were giving us our own toe tags to wear around our necks. Even in death, soldiers don't always get those very freedoms we believe we are fighting for. Sergeant Patrick Stewart was a soldier in the Army who died in combat in Afghanistan. And when his Chinook was shot down by an RPG, when his body was brought home, because he was a Wiccan, they would not put the Wiccan pinnacle on his grave. Why? Because according to the VA and the National Cemetery Administration, it prohibited graphics on government-furnished headstones or markers other than those they had approved as emblems of belief, and Wicca had not yet been recognized for it. However, after a long drawn-out fight, Sergeant Stewart's wife was eventually able to get the Wiccan symbol placed on her husband's tombstone. 48 symbols are now available, and the VA has since changed their policy to allow a representative of the fallen to apply for previously unrecognized religious symbols to be placed on their tombstones. The last war that we actually truly supported by the American people, or as the American people, throughout its entire campaign was World War II, with a 75% support rating. No military campaign since then has come even close in public support. By the end of the 1960s, less than 1/3 of the population said that Vietnam was not a mistake. Since 2007, the percentage of people who say the war on terror is worth fighting has not broken 40%. By these numbers, our country is obviously tired of war. Yet year in and year out, young men and women volunteer and will continue to do such. There are many reasons why I feel so uncomfortable when I get thanked for my time in the service, like on Veterans Day. I don't feel like I did anything special. I mean, I played a lot of board games, watched a lot of movies, listened to a lot of music, smoked a lot of cigarettes, spent a lot of time talking amongst my squad mates. We talked about lost loves, of our lives as we now know it, painful memories, happy times, and the future. You know, normal stuff. So the next time you see a soldier, current or former, remember that they have at one time or another volunteered to go to wars that we don't support, or places you will never go, only to come home to a place they no longer belong. And they made it through because they had people who always had their back. They learned something you only learn in the military. You always need a battle buddy. Thank you.